Scream arrived on the scene when the slasher horror genre had run out of steam. The 70s and 80s were decades that cranked out some of the classics which are still loved by fans today. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1974, Halloween in 1978, Friday the 13th in 1980, A Nightmare on Elm Street 1984, and many more. The brainchild of Kevin Williamson and nurtured by Wes Craven, the Scream movies have made an impact on the slasher genre and transformed it in a way that has fans revisiting the older movies every time a new one in the franchise comes out. Combining the elements of satire and meta with slasher horror, Wes Craven introduced us to a new concept, that you could laugh and scream from fright at the same time while enjoying social commentary on the tropes utilized in horror movies. With the release of the 6th movie in the 28th year of the franchise, and with a 7th one in development, the ranking debate has begun making its rounds once again. Let's take a look at the Scream movies ranked from worst to best. Starting off with number 6, Scream 3. My favorite thing about the 3rd movie in the franchise is how everyone collectively agrees it's the worst one of the 6. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad viewing experience, but it does not meet the criteria of a horror slasher. The premise was smart. I mean, switching the location from Woodsboro to Hollywood, where a new Stab movie is being made, gives the viewers something new while maintaining its meta quality. On paper, it is a genius idea, but sadly, the execution fell flat. Perhaps it had something to do with the fact that while Wes Craven directed it, Kevin Williamson did not write for Scream 3. Aaron Kruger did. No doubt Kruger is an amazing screenwriter in his own right, but he doesn't have that particular brand of flavor that Williamson infuses into the Scream movies. In a bid to bring Sidney, who has gone into seclusion after the events of the past year, out of hiding, Ghostface begins picking off the actors that have been cast for Stab 3. An investigation begins and the original cast is reunited for another adventure. The comedic elements and the whodunit take center stage in Scream 3, but it is done at the expense of the violence and the horror elements of the story. It feels more like watching a murder mystery with a knife-happy killer than a horror slasher. The movie shed light on the shady casting couch culture and sexual predation of young women in Hollywood, which John Milton, executive producer of the first 2 Stab films, was party to. He was also involved in Maureen's abuse, which he defended by saying, "It was the 70s. Everything was different." In light of the 2017 Harvey Weinstein scandal, these words take on a new meaning, as he served as the executive director for the first 4 films in the franchise. One also can't help but wonder if Roman Bridger was a reference to the notorious director Roman Polanski. The inclusion of Mark Kincaid, played by Patrick Dempsey, McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy for the layfolks, to become Sidney's only love interest who doesn't succumb to death at Ghostface's hands was a welcome one, because our girl seriously deserves some happiness. On that note, the events of Stab 3 result in a perspective shift for Sidney. Thus far, she had dealt with the trauma by shutting everyone out and nursing her trust issues, something which her ex-late roommate Hallie McDaniel and ex-late bestie Tatum Riley both tried to fix. Instead of running away from her problems, she decides to stand and face them. The development of Gail and Dewey's relationship was also a fresh plot point, and I'm glad it went somewhere. The kills are creative, but mission-oriented. Truly didn't expect the gas explosion, but Ghostface's appeal to me lies in the fact that the mantle the killer dons inspires its own unique brand of terror with just a mask and a hunting knife. It's not the reveal of Roman Bridger being Sidney's half-brother and Maureen's illegitimate first child that ruins the entire thing. His claim of having masterminded the events of the first movie, Maureen's murder via the manipulation of Billy and Stu, does. They do try to save it by Randy's posthumous appearance via videotape, brought to them by his sister Martha Weeks, where he explains the rules for the 3rd movie and how none of the rules from the previous movies would apply to what would be a final film in the trilogy. But it doesn't work. Oh, how we miss you, Jamie Kennedy. Despite all these criticisms, Scream 3 is still a watchable movie, but it's easily the worst one of the franchise. Scream 4 had its work cut out regarding how badly its predecessor did, but it took the challenge head on. The Inception-style cold open was a smart move, yes, but the fake-outs minimized the impact of the murders of Marnie Cooper and Jenny Randall, who are the actual victims of this movie. The casting was brilliant. If there's one thing that can be said about the franchise, it's that the casting is always immaculate. Alongside our golden trio, Nev, David, and Courtney, the film featured big and well-known names such as Emma Roberts, Hayden Panettiere, Rory Culkin, Lucy Hale, Anna Paquin, and Kristen Bell, to name a few. However, I personally think it was a bit overdone. There are so many people to keep track of that the viewing experience becomes less enjoyable. Bringing in such big names only to reduce them to cannon fodder doesn't seem to be the best plan to take. Some might call it diabolical, but it comes across as a bit of a waste. Jill Scott seeking the same fame as Roman Bridger was a tired concept, but there is no doubt that Emma Roberts' portrayal of Ghostface was applaudable. Mrs. Loomis might have been the first female character to don the mask, but it was Emma Roberts who did it justice with her psychotic demeanor. The violence and kills in 4 were brutal, satisfying the craving for bloodshed that most slasher fans come for. The final showdown, Dewey, Gail, and Sidney versus Jill, in the hospital towards the end, was anticlimactic after Act 3. But Sidney Prescott's legendary "Don't fuck with the original" is my favorite bit of the entire sequence. You can crank out as many stories in a franchise you want, but you'll never best the original. The 4th movie is a throwback to the original, utilizing the older elements which made it a cult classic, while moving forward in a new and modern direction. To do that, it does too much and does not leave much of an impression compared to the others. Number 4, Scream 5, the first one after the demise of horror titan Wes Craven, who succumbed to brain cancer in 2015. The cast and crew of Scream 5 had their work cut out for them. The daunting task fell to Matt Bertolini-Olpin and Tyler Gillett for direction, while James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick took care of the writing. The opening credits of the movie include a dedication to Wes Craven, giving the viewer a sense of nostalgia-laced loss while inspiring a sense of trepidation for what's about to come. Scream 5 returns once again to Westboro, with the iconic opening scene of the first movie. This time, Jenna Ortega, channeling young Drew Barrymore as Tara Carpenter, playing movie trivia with Ghostface. However, the movie immediately sets the tone with Ghostface's viciously violent attack on Tara, which doesn't kill her, but actually leaves her hospitalized, which is a first. There go on to be a lot of firsts in the movie. The main protagonists in Scream 5 are descendants of the original victims of the Westboro killings. The descendants, alongside a few other characters, make up Tara's friend group. We're soon made to realize that Tara was essentially bait to lure back home her sister, our other final girl, Samantha Carpenter, who is Billy Loomis's daughter and has been struggling to live with that her whole life. Scream 5 introduces the concept of a requel, a bit of a remake, a bit of a sequel, the rules for which are succinctly laid down by Mindy in typical Randy fashion. The film has always utilized real-world elements to make the movies feel more realistic. Where the previous Scream movies took horror movie tropes and poked fun at them, this movie takes into account the real-world reactions to these tropes. It is masterfully weaved into the narrative and covers the entire gamut of the horror genre. All bets were off in this film. Anyone and everyone was game. Scream 5 also went where no one expected them to, killing off a legacy character. Dewey's death is a blow to us all. Even though Scream has long established the fact that no one is safe from the wrath of Ghostface, there's security in the knowledge that at least they won't kill off the main characters. That security was snatched away when Dewey was brutally gutted right before our eyes. Considering how Scream 5 had none of the main players to work with this time around, I think they did a really good job. Scream 2 was actually number 2 in my ranking, until the 5th movie came out. Scream 2 comes out guns blazing. The fact that they were able to pull out a sequel so soon after the first movie is no small feat. Kevin Williamson, already having written some of the script for the second movie, definitely helped things along. The meta aspect of the second film is just crazy if you think about it. The first movie in the franchise was inspired by the Gainsborough murders. The second movie in the franchise comes with a movie called Stab, which is about the Woodsboro murders, which Gale Weathers even wrote a book about. Scream 2 also discovers the issue of representation in horror movies, which is fixed by bringing Jada Pinkett to do a Drew Barrymore bit and by adding Hallie McDaniel and Joel Martin to the mostly white character lineup. The brutal murder of the couple in the theater was meta-mirroring of Casey and Steven for the previous movie. Mickey and Randy's discussion over sequels is a brilliant piece of meta-commentary that I keep coming back to. The entire horror genre was destroyed by sequels is ironic considering Scream 2 is one of the best sequels out there. The Ghostface spook factor was more intense this time around. Instead of appearing out of thin air after playing phone chicken with the victim, this time Ghostface is shown lurking and looming ominously in the background before claiming the unfortunate victim. The killer reveals were a little goofy in my opinion. Mickey was fairly easy to narrow down, but the appearance of Mrs. Loomis did not generate as much shock as it did eye rolls. Randy's demise also knocked this movie down the ranking because he was legitimately my favorite character from the surviving cast. Also, his death was a little too personal. In the previous movie, Ghostface worked under the cover of darkness. Killing Randy in broad daylight disabused viewers of the notion that we are safe during the daytime. Here's the thing. If Scream 5 did an amazing job laying down the basis for what's to come in the future, then Scream 6 exceeded expectations in that regard. Everything was in an entirely different league. Taking the story to New York was one thing, but having Ghostface appear in public and do the killings in supremely public spots was chilling. Samantha and Tara getting attacked on the street, and the subway scene with Mindy and Ethan is not something that we're going to be forgetting anytime soon. The Ghostface reveal was also cranked up a notch. Usually it's 2 Ghostface killers, a trend started by the Billy and Stu pair from the first movie. But Scream 6 decided to go with 3, which honestly was a smart choice because Ethan was considerably easy to guess, and Detective Bailey was a little too shady. The reappearance of Quinn took me by surprise, considering she's written off earlier as one of Ghostface's victims. Melissa Barrera personally shown a lot more in this movie as compared to the previous movie. Despite Samantha being the key character around which the plot revolved, I personally felt like Tara and her friends stole the show in the previous film. The part where she's facing down Quinn in the theater, post-Ghostface reveal, and the smile she bestows upon her before shooting is peak Billy Loomis. Samantha embracing her legacy and donning the Ghostface mask was truly spectacular. Usually it's the final girl who unmasks the masked killer before killing him. This time, Sam flipped the script by donning the Ghostface mask before doing away with her tormentor. Watching her embrace the killer instinct she'd been battling with was thrilling, for it can be construed as the return of Billy Loomis. Jenna Ortega held her own as Tara Carpenter, and watching the sisters bond amongst the carnage was actually nice. Scream 6 gave us a lot more than we expected, while leaving us with the question, what is in store for the next movie? Also, Chad becoming the new Dewey was hilarious, even if it did make me a little bit sad. David Arquette, you will forever be iconic for Dewey. I personally missed Sidney and Dewey a lot. The former was referenced but doesn't show up, and the latter is dead. Gail's near-death experience had us all wondering whether this was the end for her as well. This is why the 6th movie ended up taking the top 2nd spot for me. It showed us that the film was in truly capable hands, and that the groundwork laid in the 5th movie is the reason why the 6th works so well. My only gripe with this film is the pacing. I feel like there are parts that could have been shorter, because I felt every minute of the 2-hour and 2-minute runtime. I guess we all saw this coming. Just like how everyone collectively agrees that Scream 3 is the worst movie of the franchise, the first Scream is the undisputed queen. It reinvented the horror slasher genre, laid down the blueprint for the movies ahead, and was well appreciated for its feminist undertones. Wes Craven has toyed with feminist themes in his work before, but he definitely altered the final girl mold. Previously, horror films showcased that the final girl survived by being intelligent and ascribing to society's morals, abstaining from premarital sex, avoiding drugs, etc. But Sidney survives despite being sexually active and going up against not one, but 2 serial killers. Well-written female characters, such as Tatum and Gale, are a breath of fresh air, in a time where women in cinema were poorly characterized or killed off for gratuitous purposes. Also, the constant references to other horror movies always gives the viewers a little kick, because horror movies tend to exist in the same universe where they are not openly acknowledged or called out in the way Scream did. Scream also brought to the forefront the reminder that sometimes our worst nightmare isn't some creature from the beyond, but just some killer in a Ghostface mask. Nothing will ever compare to the first time you watch this movie. It feels like being stuck in a dream, one that turns into a nightmare in the blink of a second while never being sure when or if you'll wake up. The movie has you suspended in a constant state of disbelief. Did that happen for real or not? Drew Barrymore doing the biggest fake-out is the biggest example of this. Over the course of 6 movies, we've had 13 Ghostface killers, but no one has been able to top Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard's performance. The shivers that arose when Billy Loomis licks his bloodied finger while quoting Anthony Perkins' Psycho, coupled with the mounting horror of Stu Macher's appearance to block Sidney's escape, is a feeling that is not going to be quickly forgotten. Granted, after multiple rewatches, one does tend to notice the little plot holes and mistakes, but the campiness of it all is what makes it a fan favorite too. And there you have it. I'm sure we'll have another ranking video once the 7th movie comes out. The reason Neve Campbell wasn't in the 6th movie was due to pay negotiations, but she did announce in March earlier this year that she would be returning for the next one. The loss of 2 main stars, Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, has also raised questions for the future of the film. However, Kevin Williamson is said to be directing this one, so I guess there's hope for it yet.